Hello, and welcome back to the Deep Cut Cheese Podcast. I'm here with Kyle, and I'm Josh, and it's been a few weeks since we've been together, Kyle. Uh,
Yeah, it's
we were traveling, and I was sick, or I was traveling and got sick last week. But so what's new in your life?
oh man, far as new, I'm over 50 rides on Peloton, which I don't like to brag, but that's a pretty big deal. And also, I'm really into The Last Kingdom on Netflix. It's a Viking show, so basically, I'm just saying till Valhalla to everybody, just to keep it real.
Okay. Hey, are you fading in and out here? Like
Uh,
technical difficulties?
if I am,
Am
it's
I okay?
unintentional. I hear you fine.
All right. Let's just hope this is good. We'll catch it on the edit if it's not, anyways. So, Till Valhalla, what's that all about?
So, till Valhalla is something these Viking dudes say to each other, like, "We go into war, I'll see you in heaven." Basically, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
Oh, it's like a battle cry.
Yeah, definitely a battle cry.
Oh, nice.
There's some politics in there too. It's Game of Thronesy. I'm a sci-fi nerd, so it's right up my alley.
So, The Last Kingdom. I haven't heard of that. I actually binge watched while I was sick. Veep. Have you heard of Veep?
I've
Uh,
heard of Veep. I
yeah,
actually love Julian Louis-Dreyfus, but I haven't seen it.
yeah. It was good actually, and here's a hot take. Like literally, one of the last episodes that I watched was when the he's the doofus of the show, Jonah Ryan. He made his whole platform on rolling back daylight savings time, like quit changing our clocks.
And I just remember the guy's name. I'm gonna say his name here because I think that he would appreciate this. Master Sergeant Brian Fox. One day he's gonna see this. That dude bitched about daylight savings time every year, every time and we were in Arizona, but it didn't even happen. Didn't even happen. Didn't even affect us. He did change.org petitions. He would put on the bottom of his emails in the quote, it would be like, daylight savings time is for suckers. I'm stoked about this.
Yeah, so I mean, it passed the Senate, so it's obviously got to get through the House, and I can't imagine them not passing it. But yeah, it's like it only took 2,000 years for us to get this, or at least the last 20 years. It felt kind of silly, anyways. And
I know.
so, anyways, it made me laugh as I'm binge watching Veep while I'm sick. I was sick last week. That's why we didn't produce a podcast. So yeah, it was good. It was good. I didn't really watch anything else. So, but before that, I was in New York and I went to this kind of leadership development kind of thing. It was hosted by this company called Next Jump. I've been associated with for 4 or 5 years now, and their offices in New York City are sick. Like the it's it's a huge building. It's right on the High Line, full of like. I mean, it has a gym. It has the showers. It has a salon. It has Pilates rooms. I mean, this is a tech company, right? And so they built it right before COVID hit, and they hadn't moved into it. And so like now they're trying to figure out what life is like. They have like 100 employees in New York, but only 7 are actually in the office. And it's like
Mm.
I don't know, 40,000 square feet, and there's like 7 of them in there. Oh, it has a basketball court in it, a huge kitchen. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it was pretty dope. They had us doing this stuff called cross domain coaching, and it's kind of on the theory of how you do anything is how you do everything. And so, like, I played basketball for a long time, but so we had to shoot hoops, and there was this like professional basketball coach there, Coach Mackey. I guess, well, he teaches kids, but he's taught professionals and everything like that. And so what he had us do is he gave us some criteria, and we were supposed to, shoot a ball, follow through, hand, both your hands do something, parallel, knees, all this kind of stuff, and you're supposed to follow this criteria. And then you had another person watching you do it, and they had to give you a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you did it right or wrong, right? And So we were doing it, and people were giving thumbs up, thumbs down, like, you know, giving someone 5 thumbs down in a row, like, hey man, can't you figure this out? Like, it's a little hard. It's more difficult than you think, because the rule was like, hey, don't give them anything. Like, if they do it perfect, give them a thumbs up. If they don't do anything perfect, if they do one thing wrong, it's a thumbs down. They can improve. And then at the end, he made us stand around in a circle, and he's like, all right, who is the nicest liar? Like, and we all had to just like point at who was the best coach, who was uncoachable, and it was like, it was pretty legit, and it, kind of the uh, got all kinds of lessons from it. But we did that with basketball, CrossFit, and dancing. They had us out there dancing. How you do anything is how you do everything. And some people were saying, like, I go all out and I can't finish, right? And they started correlating that to their life. Like, I'm so out of balance. I go all out in the beginning of a project and I can't finish it. All kinds of stuff. So it was pretty neat little thing. They're also trying to create a blue zone. You ever heard of blue zone?
I have. I'm kind of fascinated with the blue zones.
Yeah, so I guess there's 7 technically, but they're trying to create the 8th blue zone at their headquarters, and they've hired this like 3-star Michelin chef to like produce, like, they want to be the hub of human performance. So it was a really cool few days, and I'm glad that I got to go. But I think I got COVID light from them, and so I didn't like that part. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm pretty sure your little trip to New York is the reason why you came back the next week with that little sad face COVID light.
Well, I got my government COVID tests that we ordered, and I took them, and they always said negative. But who knows? Maybe there was a positive in there, but it kicked me in the butt for about 10 days.
Yeah,
So,
that's brutal. I just looked up the name of the documentary I watched. It's believe it or not, it's got Zac Efron in it. It's called The Down to Earth, and it's about just health, and it's about like longevity, but they really kind of go into the depths of blue zones. And if you're
oh
interested
yeah,
in
why
blue
don't you
zones,
say a little bit about Blue Zone? We didn't actually say what they were, so I'm
all
sure there's
right.
people that don't know what they are.
Yeah, so blue zones are these areas in the world where people experience greater health and longer lives. So I only know of three off the top of my head. One's Okinawa,
Yep.
one is Costa Rica, and the other one is in, I want to say, Sicily, or Sardinia, but it's one of those two rocks that Italy is kicking out in the Mediterranean. But it was actually, the term was coined over there off the coast of Italy on one of those two rocks, um, by a scientist who was studying um, these the daily habits of people that had this greater than average number of centurions. I
Yeah.
think I'm saying that right. Centurions.
Yeah, I lived 100 years. Yeah,
Yes.
Okinawa, like sweet potatoes and things like that. Loma Linda, California is another blue zone. Um, I think it has to do with health, like quality of food that they have there or something like that. But there's just a lot of people living to big ages there. So, anyways, yeah, so blue zone of health, and that's what Next Jump is trying to become there.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was really neat. Anything new going on with your job?
Nope, still boring. I still work around the airport. I'm doing safety, so safety's fun. Um, and environmental, so I do all the environmental stuff. I do all the safety stuff. It's man, it's just what it is. It's
Yeah,
not my passion. It's not what I want to do. It's a means to an end for me right now.
yeah. Get that new roof on your house, right?
That's right, exactly right.
Yeah. I actually had a meeting with some Air Force chiefs this week.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so some of the programs that we've ran, it's called "What's Working, What's Not Working." It's a transparency exercise. Try to eliminate some communication barriers. I had to walk them through that, but it was really neat to Zoom with some military members again, and then yeah, at Rice, we're starting all these adaptive mindset training groups. It's really cool to be able to I started 2 today, where we're working on dialing down these red arrow behaviors. I think I've talked about it before, but how do you dial down the behaviors that create silence in your organization? It's such a neat experiment to run because every single one of the groups is different, and it really depends on who's the alpha, who speaks first. All these kind of things like lead these groups down tangents and trails, and it's just fascinating to watch how one or two people in that group can drive the whole thing. And as a facilitator, I'm trying to navigate it back to where I think is probably the right mixture. But it's so fascinating to deal with group dynamics that way.
I'm curious, did you call folks out when because you know those dynamics of group behavior? Were you like, "Hey, let's just like dissect the past 5 minutes here. Um, you talked first. You talked over X. You didn't say anything. Did you kind of like, hey, these are the roles that you guys are filling out?
So
Is this
this
where
was
you guys are at?"
this is day one. Well, session one of the 13 weeks. So there wasn't a whole lot of calling out people just yet because it was more orientation. Next week they get into where they're going to be speaking a lot. So um, what I kind of meant by like it's funny the dynamics. Like, hey, so are you guys excited about this? No. Like if someone says that immediately, like it drives it. You know what I mean? Or if someone says, "Yeah, I'm really excited about this training." You know what I mean? Like it's funny how that's what I meant by how it drives group dynamics.
Yeah, so what's funny when you said, "Are you excited about this?" The very first thing that popped in my head is a road ass master sergeant or just an old and busted staff sergeant who's just had it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's who I can see saying that. No.
Well, funny you should say that. I wasn't thinking about this, but as you say that, like when I taught at the academy on day one, because I knew where people were at, I would always ask, hey, if I could hand you your diploma right now and you could go home, who here would take the diploma and leave? 95% of the people raise their hand. Yeah, I'm out. Like, give me the diploma. I'm here to get C's to get degrees. I'm here to leave, right? And I'd ask them why. Like some of them, like so legit. Like, yeah, I was just deployed to Afghanistan for 8 months. I get back for a month, and now I have to be here, 2 more months away from my family. Like, there's nothing I
I
can
get,
argue. Yeah,
yeah, I get that one.
yeah. There and a lot of them are like that. Like, hey, I just got back from Korea for a year, and now I'm here. And so there was a. I mean, some of them were chumpy answers, but a lot of them were really good, reasons. And so my only goal was it's kind of like being in Korea. Like, well, okay, you have a choice. You can either come here and not get anything out of it, or put a little something into it and walk away a better person. And so that was my goal, is to try to at the end of the 8 weeks, like, so I know you probably still would leave, but who here got something out of it that was worth being here? And 95% of the people, maybe they were just stroking my ego or whatever, but um, you know, it was
Well,
a way to set the foundation, like truth.
yeah, as a former member of the probably would have raised his hand on the first day committee, I would say that I did get a lot out of Senior NCO Academy. I was in a conversation today talking about power dynamics and stuff we learned in the Senior NCO Academy about
Sure.
positional power and informational power. It kind of had come up with this person that I was talking to, and we were kind of going over it, and they were like, "Hey, where did you learn that?" And I was like, "The Air Force Senior Non-Commissioned Officer Academy." And they're like, "Oh man, that's cool. They teach you guys that." So it was kind of interesting.
Was Holger your instructor? Who was your instructor?
Holger Fells. Um, and I would like to say that I had a very love-hate relationship with Holger. I think he's a great guy. I think one of my greatest friends to this day, a Coast Guard person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, we're boys. We've been boys forever since we met in Senior NCO Academy. Man, he and Holger were like fire and ice, homie.
For everyone out there, Holger was. We have we have instructors that are from Germany. We have instructors that are from the Army, Navy, all those kind of things. Like what's it called when you send someone, like, it's not cross,
Like,
but
exchange.
yeah, it's like instructor exchange. We send some instructors to them. They send some to us. And Hogerfels was a German uh, exchange instructor, so it was pretty cool.
So there's a lot of beauty about the German culture that I think I got. to kind of live in those. Even though I was in the U.S., right? Just the personal characteristics of Germans. I haven't spent that much time with one person who's from that culture, and just you call it the Reiner no.
Yeah, that's right.
But I definitely remember that. Like, hey, Holger, do you want to? No. Okay, moving on.
Yeah. So for all our listeners out there, Reiner Lichtenstein was actually the next German instructor after Holgerfels left, and it was great. Just learning from him and his culture. But I remember one time being in one of the classes, and just for their culture, German, they can say no, just a hard no. And so one of the instructors like, "Hey, Reiner, would you like to get up here and teach this?" And Reiner was like, "Nope," and that was it. And it was so interesting because like our natural tendency is to say, "Oh no, I don't know," and to give an excuse like, "Hey, do you want to come
Right.
over for dinner tonight?" No, I can't. I just got done with my Peloton ride. Whatever it is, right? But if you asked Reiner and he didn't want to come over, this is what you got. Hey, Reiner, you want to come over for dinner tonight? Nope. And that was it. There was no explanation, nothing. And so for all you cool cats out there, like this is how, as friends, we now deal with it. Hey, man, feel free to give me a Reiner no, but you want to go out this weekend? Nope. We laid the ground so that we can just say no and not have to give an excuse, right?
Yeah, that's epic.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of the Senior NCO Academy, this week, Senior Master Sergeant results came out, and so it's kind of fun watching all the Facebook posts and things like that. So I thought maybe we could dive into some promotion stories, or just maybe, yeah, wherever that takes us. So, what do you think about? First of all, senior is obviously the hardest rank to make, and for if you're not a military member, that's in E8. There's 9 enlisted ranks, and senior master sergeant is the 8th one, and it is tough. So, do you have any good stories from promotion, or any tidbits, any trails you want to go down, Kyle?
Well, congratulations to the 1,443 who were selected. That's huge. It's a big deal. I agree 100% that senior is the toughest rank to make. I think it doesn't. I guess it doesn't really matter how many times it took me to make it, but it took me more than it had taken me prior to put on a stripe. So, but I just remember it just being. I think it's because it's not completely on you. It's not completely up to you if you make senior or not.
What do you mean
Um,
by that?
I mean that when we were being evaluated for senior in chief, our records went before a board, and that board spends, and you're going to know the answer to this much better, but they take a certain amount of time and they look at, roughly 5 to 10 years of your Air Force history, and they say, okay, yep, definitely, no. And maybe they have a maybe pile. I'm not even sure they have a maybe pile. They might just say, yep, or nope. And then they kind of go back through it. And it's pretty amazing how they do it, because I know that there's a very close threshold of like the people who all do the evaluations of your of your board, essentially of your records.
Yep.
They're super close.
Yeah, they have to be within 1.5 points, right? So 1 point of each other. So there is no maybe pile. They just put it in a relative. They give every package a score from 6 to 10. And so if I scored your thing a 7 and you scored it 8.5, we're gonna have to talk that out, because we're too far apart. And so it is pretty fair. It's 2 chiefs and a colonel that sit on a board, and they spend 3 to 5 minutes depending on where they're at. Yeah, grading I think it's 5 years now only, but 5 years of your records to determine. So it used to be they didn't determine the actual score or the cutoff, because we also had a test, but there's no more test. So now they actually determine uh, pretty much who's making senior. But they don't know as they're going through where the actual line's going to end up. So it's objective. It's a pretty neat system. It's very rigid though. So There's plenty of people out there, and I used to say this all the time, like, um, yeah, just because you don't make rank doesn't mean you're not a phenomenal NCO or senior NCO. They spent 3 minutes, and I've sat in enough I've sat in enough awards boards where no one has the same damn opinion of each record. So something jumps out at every single different person, and yeah. So I think holistically we probably get it right, but there are definitely cracks where people fall through. As a chief, as you know, just even as you were coming up, did you see people that you were like, man, why didn't they make it? Like, what was their story?
Absolutely. And there was a point component of testing when I was coming up specifically for the other two ranks, the top two enlisted ranks, E8 and E9. So, and some of those were self-inflicted. You know what I mean? If you miss it by two, but you scored a 23 on the test,
Yeah,
that's not a problem with the board. It's not a problem with your records. It's a problem with your initiative to study. So, but I would see that stuff. I was blessed to be in a very large career field. I was a 2A3 X3. I think we ended up being 2A3 X's essentially at the end.
crew chief.
And yep, so crew chief and avionics kind of merged together at that rank. And so there was a lot of us. But, and so you didn't have to be stratted, and we'll have to explain that, but you didn't have to be stratted as a crew chief or avionics guy. It helped, but I wasn't stratted when I made chief. It's just one of those things.
Yeah. So was there anyone that as you were coming up that moved on as a master sergeant, maybe retired, that you're like,
Oh
man, the
yeah.
Air Force got this wrong?
Yeah, there was a couple people who I felt were absolutely chief. I mean, if you're a senior master sergeant, chances are you're chief material, right?
Yeah, right.
Undoubtedly. So, but there were lots of master sergeants that I knew, and in my opinion, were absolutely chief worthy, worthy of wearing that rank. And it's just, sometimes it was self-inflicted, sometimes it was, um, the board, I guess, didn't see
Yeah,
what they felt like their records, and maybe I felt like their records kind of displayed. I tried to move when I was in those positions. I tried to move my heavy hitters, my guys who I felt were just great leaders. I tried to move their duty titles around and definitely tried to get them recognized with, awards. That makes such a big difference.
yeah,
So I would try and get them recognized with awards and, of the years. It
sure.
takes a couple of the quarters to get an of the year, and so they could have that hung on them when they go into their board review.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's such razor thin, the differences in just the records and everything like that, and just this person, produced this many sorties. The next person produced this many sorties. Like, how do you judge that? Like who's better? And so it's very subjective, but overall, the review is objective. And so you've been out for a couple years now, and I'd be curious to like you've seen both sides. Like, what are the pluses and minuses of the way that the military does it versus what you've seen outside?
Wow, that's a good question. So I think what I would say is I love how the military, and it's not 100%, but it's pretty, they recognize hard work. I feel like the military, specifically the Air Force, and from our career field, I felt like if you were out there and you were leaving it all on the line, so to speak, that you were absolutely, that you were recognized. I felt like the military recognized and awarded, um, those people who were doing, God's work out there, on the streets.
Gotcha.
I feel like in civilian life, in business life, that's not always the case. So in companies that I've been in, I've been executive leadership since I've been out. I've been director level, and I've been kind of mid-level manager. And I'll be honest with you, right now, I'm mid-level manager. That's precisely where I want to be. But there, I feel like, you know, that a lot of people um, are able to kind of coast by easier in this world than it is in the military world, because I feel like the military is going to call you out on it, right? If you're not doing great, I feel like you're gonna know. Someone's gonna tell you, "Hey, bro, you're not doing great."
Yeah, I would. I mean, from what I've seen so far, it is easier to coast a little bit. I mean, you can definitely find your spots in the military where there's places for you to coast. But I will say this: that I do think objectively we have the fairer system. From what I've seen promotion wise, not a lot of checks and balances outside in private businesses or universities or whatever. Um, the old adage is not what you know. Uh,
Oh yeah.
so I've seen that a lot more prevalent on the outside. So it's funny because that was a big argument that I heard a lot of the times, like, oh, this is a good old boy system here, and they were probably talking about strats and those kind of things, but objectively there was more checks and balances than I so far in my short-lived civilian career life than I've seen everywhere else, right? So it doesn't mean they made bad decisions. I'm just saying there's not as many checks as balances. Like,
Oh yeah.
so
I think I think there can be some progress there on both sides. Definitely, if you want to sit back and scrape a paycheck, if you're that kind of person, you'll find your niche in the military. You'll find your back office somewhere and do that, and you'll do that and it happens in the business world as well. I have seen some of that. It's who you know, and I'll be honest with you. When I first got out, it was who I knew, and I was elevated pretty darn quickly through the ranks, and it felt good. You making some money, but also they want you to work for that money. They ain't just giving you that cheddar. They want it's definitely 24/7.
yeah, I remember
Definitely.
coming over to your house on vacation or whatever, and like, I'm like, bro, it's 10 o'clock at night. You're still getting the. I was like, is he a chief again? Like, you burning both ends of the candle. That was for sure.
Yeah, it's much easier to all of our listeners out there to be lazy and retired than have all that business.
Yeah. Hey, so what was your coolest way that someone like told you you got promoted? Like, um, everyone always like makes a big deal about the party, like the promotion party, but I think I remember how I was told that I got promoted way more than the promotion party. You have any cool ways
Yeah,
that you were
I got
told?
I've got 2. I've got an embarrassing one, and I've got a cool one. So I'll start with the cool one. I found out that I'd made chief in Kunsan, and I was the the assistant superintendent at the Juvats, and I'm sitting there, and I did what I always did every day at my desk with a frown on, just correcting EPRs, right? Because that's what they do. Because the chief ain't doing that. So I was looking at EPRs and just correcting EPRs, and I happened to look up, and it is dead quiet in the main room, and my office is right off the main room. I'm like, either we're under attack or something weird's happening. And then I see the captain with a push broom. He brooms right in front of my office super fast, and I'm like, why is the captain carrying a broom? It made no sense. And then so I get up and I walk out, and I said, Captain, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, everybody's busy. I just thought I would straighten up. And I look around and there's nobody in there. And about that time, the Wolf, which is the base commander in Kunsan,
Nice.
comes around where everybody's got a nickname. His is the Wolf. And he comes around the corner and he's like, "Where is?" And he points at me. He says, "Chief Baker." And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. And then, of course, everybody comes flooding out of the offices. I don't know how they got that many stinky humans to be quiet for that long. And everybody was just like super cool about it. The guy behind the wolf, gives him a bottle of champagne. He gives it to me and he's like, "Open it." And I was like, I opened it. I took a swig. He took a swig. No COVID here.
Yeah,
I don't even know where that bottle went. It didn't stay with me because it must have just passed around. So
the 18
it
year
was,
old got it real quick.
yeah, it was super cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So, what was the embarrassing one?
The embarrassing one was I was stationed in Lodges Field in the Azores, and I was obviously a senior airman. I lived in base housing in these little crack houses out on the island, and I was a night shifter. And so at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on my door, and right across from me on the hallway was another guy that I work with. He was a staff sergeant, um, and he was one of those people with hang on. How do I say this the correct way? Because it's going to be out there forever. He was just a very weird individual, just a strange guy. So him knocking on my door at 8 in the morning when he knows I'm sleeping is not a strange thing. And it's kind of like a big trailer park out there in the old young NCO houses anyway.
Yeah,
So
right.
bang, 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 bang on my door. And so I get up. I'm wearing boxer shorts. I go to the door. I open the door, bleary eyed. I'm like, "Dude, what?" And it's my commander. And it's also his secretary and the young junior, like lieutenant who's there with him, my chief, my section chief, and a bunch of other people. And they're like, Senior and Baker, we just wanted to come and congratulate you. You just made staff sergeant. Anyway, I'm standing there in my drawers in front of all these super important people, and I am not looking good. And yeah, and I'd already been a jerk, and they were just like, "Hey, we can see you're busy. Here's your thing. No picture for you." Um, and that was it. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, that's great, man. I don't. I was promoted twice, supplemental. So for anyone out there, so that means I missed the testing cycle from being deployed. So twice I got kind of supplemental, which is kind of cool because you're when they come to announce that you made it, um, it's a very personalized thing because you're the only
Yeah,
one.
it's all yours.
But it's also you don't really celebrate with anyone. Like everyone's kind of moved on from that, and so it's kind of fun to celebrate with people. Like we like a kind of like a team accomplishment. My coolest one was when I made chief. I was teaching at the senior NCO academy, and we had 8 people, 8 seniors at the schoolhouse make it. Um, but what we the so it took me a bit to make senior because senior's tough, but I made chief my first time, so I didn't expect it. So that's why it was so cool. So the commander came out on stage, and it was in front of the entire class, so like 500 people. Hey, we have 4 people that have made chief, and the people they announced were like brilliant, like people that just finished their doctorate, just all this kind of stuff. And as they're announcing it, you're like, oh yeah, I see that, I see that, I see that. And they got done with the 4, and I go back, to walking back to my classroom because I didn't really expect to make it. He's like, not only did we have 4, but we actually had 3 more, and he pulls out 3 more bottles of champagne, and he announces the next 2, which was, or I guess it wasn't 8, it was 7, and that was cool. And then they announced the last one, which was me, and it was one of those things where like he said my name, but I'm looking around to clap for someone because I just didn't, like I did not expect it, and it was really cool. And then so here's a hot take for all you people out there. And then the Chiefs group came around and asked me for $400 for my chief dues and paying for this party, but uh, yeah, so that was pretty cool. But I will say the funnest part was going around and with the commander as the chief and the first sergeant, and handing out stripes, right? Like that is the
Oh
goal.
yeah.
And some people are kind of like they wake up with their boxers and they're like, "Get the hell out of here!" Like, But then there are some people that have put everything into it, right? And they like break down and cry because it's just like it's over. And those ones they get to me because they're like, they worked so hard, um, to you know whether back in the day when we had to take a test, to study, to do all these kind of things, and it was really neat to see the emotional release that they had, and it just warmed my heart because that's putting more food on the table for the family. It's more responsibility. It's a big deal, and it was cool to see. So, um, yeah, as we wrap up this conversation about promotions, and we can definitely talk a little more about it, but I just want to congratulate all the seniors out there because that is it's so hard to make senior. And for all the people out there that didn't make it, yeah, don't also understand that like your rank is not your identity. Um, you
Yeah.
know, there are
That's
there are plenty of. Go ahead.
no, that's a huge. What you're about to say is huge. But what I think, because I've heard you say it before about the master sergeant thing. Like this might be your last rank. You might stop at master sergeant, and yeah, I mean, complete your thought, man. Because honestly, there's so many good dudes that it doesn't just doesn't happen for whatever
Yeah.
reason.
Well, and the reason it's so hard to make seniors because you're going from this like 15,000, eligibility down to like 1,500 that make it. So it's less than 10% of the people make it, and so and at the next year, there's another 2-3,000 people in that package trying to compete. So there's new fresh rounds every time. So it's just really hard, and there are plenty of master sergeants that can conduct themselves like a damn chief, and you'd go to war with them any day of the week. And so sometimes the ranks just don't add up. It's just life's not fair. If this is the first time you're hearing it on this podcast, I'm glad that we could bring that hot take to you. But life's not fair, and it doesn't always work out. So, but it was really good. Like goal setting is interesting because for a while I was setting my goals to make rank. Like, hey, let me make this rank to put more food on the table, more responsibility, whatever. And it was so interesting. You work really hard to get there. As soon as you make it, like as soon as like they hand you the stripes and everything like that, like my brain immediately went to what's next. It's so
Mhm.
funny how fast your brain flips once you meet a goal to the next goal. And so
Yeah.
that was a real hard lesson for me to learn because like when are you ever happy? So that's when I quit, and it was about the master sergeant level when I quit trying to chase any rank. It was almost like playing poker. Like I'm gonna put my best chips forward, and whatever card falls, falls. And if it's my card, then good. If it's not my card, then it is what it is. But yeah, it doesn't always work out for sure.
Yeah. I
I
was the
was the
same
same
way.
way.
So
So
I feel like I charged for that um, specifically as a junior NCO. I was charging for that next rank, and when I made tech, man, I was eyeing Master Sergeant, and I didn't give myself any time to just appreciate how rad of a rank
Yeah,
that was, right?
that's right.
And I mean, I got to expedite for a couple of years, and that's a really cool job. It's like where you get to kind of like conduct all the maintenance on all the airplanes wherever you're at. I was in Japan, and I taught FTD, and that was cool. It's just I didn't really, I could have appreciated that more. And I think that that was one of the biggest things for me to learn, even when I got out of the military, is how do you turn that? How do you turn that? For me, I wanted a more peaceful existence, and but there I was kind of like charging for that next higher and higher kind of duty title or higher paycheck, and then I just I kind of came to grips last year with, hey man, why don't you just be stoked about where you're at? And that's a hard That's a hard thing to do if you're, a type A personality who's been rewarded for success by the Air Force, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Your whole life.
you
There's a
really
lot to be.
you got to really redefine what you consider success.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I think that's where it starts out when you define promotions and rank as success, which it is. I'm not trying to take that away from anyone, but I think that shrinks like what you can accomplish in life if that's what your narrow definition of success is, because there are so many other things. Like you're a sailor now, right? Like you go on that boat and the feeling that it gives you, like that's success, right? That's success that yeah, that Salt and Pepper Hair can get out there and wave in the ocean. Uh, but yeah, just redefining what success looks like, and that's a really hard lesson. And I hope for any of our listeners, if you're paying attention, all four of you right now, that yeah, figure that out, figure that life lesson out. That success is not necessarily the next rank. It's part of it, but it's not all of it for sure. So, any last words to wrap that up with?
No, not on that, but I'm gonna bring up kind of an odd topic. It was you can't control like everything that's in your EPRs, right? So I know that I feel like it took me a little too long to make a rank because I had a bad EPR in there, right? And so it took a while for that EPR to get covered up,
Hmm.
and you know that the thing inside of me that makes me want to like go and drive, and well, I can get another EPR here, I can get another EPR there. It's just one of those things. It's you can't control everything, and not everything is going to be perfect, and you just kind of have to gut it and you know make it work.
Yeah, for sure. Um, it's interesting the way you talked about having like a bad EPR, like, and I was thinking about success. Have you ever seen that movie, Death Becomes Her, with like Shelley Long and yeah, a long time ago, right? Like Bruce,
Oh yeah.
and like the movie's kind of dumb, but it's just about these two ladies like that become immortal, and they're like, and it's through like the scientist who is Bruce Willis that is kind of working on them or something, if I'm remembering right. But these two ladies, they become immortal and they're like battling it out with each other. But eventually, like Bruce Willis, the guy, he kind of leaves, and he gets away from this nightmare of relationships. And the end of the movie, it shows these two ladies going to this funeral, and it's his funeral, Bruce Willis's funeral, and it's a picture, like there's a picture of him climbing Mount Everest and some other things, and they're like, whatever his name was, I'll just say Dan. You know, we don't know a lot about Dan before, age 45 because he didn't really talk about it. But I want to talk about all of the things that he did after 45. And it was climb Mount Everest. He like fed villages in, Africa. Like he did all these amazing things. And the moral of this, the sermon, the eulogy is like, your life is never over. It's every day is a new beginning, and I always think about that when I think about success and promotions and things like that. Like, you're only one day away from starting your life way to whatever you think success is now. It does. You don't have to be kind of a burden, or I don't want to, can't think of the right word, but you don't have to succumb to what you used to think success was. You can redefine it any day you want. You just have to change your mind, and that's what this guy did in that movie. He just changed his situation and pursued success. So, not that you can
Yeah.
really comment on anything on that because that movie is old as dirt.
I think I went to the movie theater and saw that when I was in junior high, actually. Bruce Willis was a scientist. He has it was a big part for him, it was a big reach. So, but yeah, it was a comedy. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. So, hey, so I'm as we were talking about success, and let me reach back here to my old, and remember we're gonna bring this up, the old Dragon Chief jersey, the 52 names. Let me put it back up. I'm leaving it up. Yeah. So today we're gonna finish up this podcast by recognizing Chief Petty Officer Christian Pike. Well, I have him as Michael Pike on my jersey, and he died on. Well, here it doesn't say it on here. It says it on my jersey though. 13 March 2013. He died. He actually died in Germany, but he was in a combat situation on the 10th of March, and he got shot. And he was a SEAL. And what I why I think this is so poignant to how I explained it when we were in Korea is what his mother went on to post about him. His mother, Diana Pike, posted on Facebook that Pike was, he was killed during a firefight. He died pretty instantly, but they got him to launch stool where he continued to fight before he finally succumbed. But Christian was so proud to be a Navy chief, and the Navy chief is a little different than the Air Force chief, but he was with the SEALs. He was living honorably as the life he chose. He wouldn't have had it any other way. Christian lived every day full with the joy in his heart. He was beautiful, compassionate, honorable, happy, and he loved his friends, family, and his Navy brothers and sisters with all his heart. He loved nothing more than being a Navy chief. And as I think about success, and I think about as if you get on the site, there are so many people that have posted what Pike meant to them. Chief Pike meant to them, and that's probably what a successful life looks like. It's not the next rank. It's not the accomplishments. It's how many people that remember you. And so today we remember Chief Petty Officer Pike and what he did for us. So like we said before, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and he's one of those people. So as we wrap up this podcast, do you have any final words for us there, Deep Cut Chief?
As always, nothing further, sir. Stoked that we got together after a couple weeks. I'm glad you're feeling better. It's cool to hear everything that happened at Next Jump. Um, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Was that the lesson?
Yeah.
It sounds like the Navy chief there did everything the right way, so that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, good tie-in. And it's an honor and a pleasure to do this with you, Kyle. I really like hanging out with you. We don't get to see each other in person as much because he chose to live in like the number, I don't know, 300 best city in the United States. And that's a reference to I live in the Woodlands, Texas, just north of Houston. And today it was voted again for the second year in a row as the number one city to live in America. So, well, but it's not close to the pier like Kyle, our sailor, needs. So, but yeah. So I think this was episode 4. Is that right? Yeah. Who cares?
Something like that. We got this.
Yeah, we got this. And so, yeah, hey, I'll play us out in some music and jam, and maybe we'll start getting some comments on our YouTube and podcast channel. So until next time, family and friends, here's the play out. Maybe. Oh, I got to turn the music up. Here we go. Oh, that didn't work either.
I'm just gonna hum us out.
It says going live. It's circling. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna play all 25 seconds.